Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed weather forecast for January 6th, 2024. We've got a lot to get through today, including showers and storms expected to be heavy at times across the far north of Queensland, severe thunderstorms expected down into the southeast of Queensland, New South Wales with a multi-day severe thunderstorm outbreak, and then heavy rainfall to be follow that. We'll talk about the heat across central and across towards eastern Australia as well, and then a tropical low expected to develop into a tropical cyclone offshore from Western Australia. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things this morning up into far north Queensland. I promise I'll keep it short and sweet. There's not an awful lot to talk about here, but the rainfall really has been piling on over the last couple of hours, with now 205mm falling at Clydes Creek, just to the north of Innisfail. Falls around the Innisfail and Tully area have been between 25 and 75mm overnight, pretty much bang on what was expected, maybe a little bit on the lower side for some of these locations here, but just between Innisfail up to Cairns, right up around that sort of Fishery Falls sort of area, the falls have been well in excess of 100mm. In fact, now it's starting to amount to over 200mm across some of the locations here, and it's just from this band of rainfall that's not only really slow moving, but it is also quite intense. The rainfall in here really packing a punch, and it is jamming itself up right against the coastline. You can see Belend and Kerr here with 38mm. I think that is an observation that's going to rise quite rapidly over the coming couple of hours. I would not be surprised if they ended up with a couple of 100mm actually throughout the course of today. Not only is considering that Australia's wettest place, where they average 10,000mm of rainfall in a calendar year, but they also can see some really intense rainfall from the front that's just about to come through here. There's slow-moving thunderstorms. You can see rainfall accumulations sort of between that 8 to 20mm an hour mark. In fact, a little bit heavier as you get closer to the coastline, up to about 30 or 40mm an hour. And once it gets across that mountain there, the rainfall accumulations really do start to build up. Cairns will get a couple of drops of rainfall as well over the coming couple of hours. I don't think they'll see too much in the way of significant falls, but they will still get a couple of good drops of rainfall. Unfortunately, the rainfall not extending out far into the Atherton tablelands, with Atherton, Mareeba and Ravenshoe all expecting dry days today. Let's jump into the forecast part of things now and talk about what's expected over the coming couple of hours. We're just going to talk about the convective forecast models here, because so far they are nailing this. The rainfall is expected to pick up throughout this afternoon, especially into the early afternoon and evening hours of tonight, especially for areas between Innisfail up to Cairns, and then later on tonight between Cairns right up to Cooktown, including the Daintree Rainforest, Port Douglas and Wudgel. We'll start to see some heavier falls around there from about 6 or so p.m. in the evening. The rainfall isn't expected to be extreme around the Cairns area, but I would still expect at least 25 or 30mm falling in the Cairns area before sunset tonight. Innisfail and Tully, not too much in the way of extra rainfall coming through for those locations either, but I definitely reckon between Innisfail to Cairns, around that Belend and Kerr and Fishery Falls sort of area, the rainfall accumulations are going to pile on there, on top of what has already piled on, so a further 100 or 120mm is entirely possible. And then into the Daintree Rainforest, with those falls that are expected to be isolated heavy, in fact close to intense at times around Wudgel up to Cooktown. I wouldn't be surprised if around midnight tonight we're looking at hourly accumulations of 20mm piling on for hours on a time, and as such, waking up to the 9 a.m. observations tomorrow of maybe around 100mm around the Daintree Rainforest, and potentially a little bit more as somewhere between Port Douglas and Wudgel. Cooktown, I reckon, will pick up about 80mm of rainfall depending on how the showers materialise in those areas, and then further up the coast up to Hopevale and Cape Flattery, I think the rainfall accumulations there will be somewhere between the 20 and 60mm mark. Further inland, once you cross the mountain ranges, though, of course, there'll be hardly anything in the way of significant rainfall out there. The showers will continue as well late into Tuesday afternoon, in fact right out to about Tuesday evening by the looks of things, with a couple of thunderstorms also expected here and there throughout Tuesday, inland into the far northern Queensland, the Cape York Peninsula. The showers will also continue late into Tuesday afternoon outside of Innisfail and Tully, but they won't be anywhere near as heavy as they have been for the last couple of hours. Rainfall accumulations, the convective forecast models, I normally take these with a very heavy pinch of salt, but they can give us a good ballpark in terms of what rainfall we're working with, and in this instance here I think the forecast is actually very reliable and very accurate, bar maybe what Cairns is expecting at this time. So like I said, a further 100 to 120mm expected around the Cassowary coast, and maybe a little bit more around Belend and Kerr, up to about 130mm there. I think Cairns will only see about 50mm of rainfall. I think this forecast here is a little bit more on the bullish side, with 150mm falling outside of Cairns, in fact a little bit more as you zoom in a little bit more. So I think the rainfall there is a little bit of a kind of bullish forecast, and then around Cooktown anyway, but sort of between that 80 to 120mm mark, I think it might be a little bit bullish here, the rainfall accumulations there as well on the forecast. I don't see Cooktown getting more than 80mm, but certainly around the Daintree Rainforest, some very significant rainfall observations are possible, certainly well into the triple figures. Thankfully, there's not a whole lot of rainfall expected beyond this forecast either for the far north of Queensland. I mean, the rainfall kind of pipes down on Tuesday evening here, and then as we get towards Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and right out towards the end of next week, and there's nothing in the way of significant rainfall piling ashore. We will likely see a bit of a resurgence in the rainfall and the moisture up in the far northern areas of Queensland by around the 13th or 14th of January, at least per this forecast here, and it is also reciprocated between other forecast models, but I think it's going to be from thunderstorms, so the future for those showers does look a little bit uncertain. But for the most part, across the far northern reaches of Queensland and the Cape York Peninsula as a whole, apart from thunderstorms that will fire up from about Sunday or Monday the 12th or 13th of January respectively, there isn't an awful lot in the way of coastal showers streaming ashore unless you're on the west side of the Cape York Peninsula, which is a whole different ballgame altogether. But at least for the far northern areas of Queensland that we're used to around the Cairns area, there isn't an awful lot of rainfall in the way or on the forecast after this rainfall system does pipe down. And you can see that's reciprocated between 14-day rainfall accumulations. Of course, these are very light numbers for the far north of Queensland. They'll obviously get much more rainfall than this, especially with what's coming through today. But normally you'd be expecting to see this time of the year some really deep colours up here in the far north Queensland, some extreme rainfall forecasts or predictions, at least from the major forecast models. But none of those have made their way onto the forecast. Like I said, more rainfall coming through today. None of the rivers are kind of standing out to me as kind of being flood risks at this time. There are a couple that are starting to rise, but nothing that's starting to rise really rapidly. We'll revisit this again later in the day if necessary, but I don't think this is too much of a risk, at least to the far northern areas of Queensland. They're built for this type of rainfall, and yes, it is heavy, and 300 millimetres coming through in a 48-hour period anywhere else around Australia would send alarm bells off like crazy, but up in the far north of Queensland, that is just another day in the office. Speaking of the far north of Queensland, that is them done for this part of the video. Let's head down into the southeast because, as you can see here, a bit of a spoiler alert, there is some interesting stuff on the forecast, and I'm going to try and stay out of the northeast of New South Wales and give New South Wales a specific part of the video, but I don't think it's going to go too well, so we'll wait and see what happens here. But rainfall accumulations, as you can see, over the next 14 days looking healthy across the southeast of Queensland, up to about 200 millimetres is possible. Let's break that down for you day by day, hour by hour on the forecast. So nothing in the way of significant stuff expected tonight, a couple of showers in the central Queensland area around Mackay, but nothing crazy expected. Thunderstorms will then begin to spread across the northeast of New South Wales and potentially over the border around Stanthorpe and Wollongara later on tomorrow afternoon and evening. They're not likely to be severe, but we could see a couple of stronger cells right on top of the border for damaging winds and heavy rainfall. But again, I wouldn't really be expecting anything too flash out of them. They do look like they have the potential, these thunderstorms, but I don't think they're going to be anything crazy, that's for sure. A couple of drops of heavy rainfall, though, cannot be discounting that threat as the night goes on. Wednesday is going to be the night for severe thunderstorms across the southeast of Queensland. A powerful range of severe thunderstorms expected around Roma, Injune and Taroom. We'll likely see some good cells out there. And then into the immediate southeastern corners of Queensland, the places that we're familiar with severe thunderstorms, Warwick, Toowoomba and Kingaroy, just a line around those areas. We'll likely see some good thunderstorms firing up into the late afternoon. They won't stick around for too long by the looks of things, and for the most part they actually look like they're going to be pulse thunderstorms. In other words, they will blow up and collapse in on themselves. They still have that chance of going severe warn for heavy rainfall, damaging winds, and potentially some medium-sized hailstones as well. So we won't be discounting the threat completely from these thunderstorms here on Wednesday afternoon and evening, but there's nothing really major in the way expected for thunderstorms from the southeast of Queensland. Also might add the Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and the Gold Coast staying pretty clear of these thunderstorms. We might see a couple of cells over in the scenic rim of the Gold Coast out towards Boonah and Bone Desert, but I wouldn't get your hopes up out there either. They certainly should stay further towards the west of Nerang, and that's a substantial drive out of the Gold Coast, about half an hour, so it doesn't look like these thunderstorms are going to be too involved in the Brisbane or the Gold Coast metro areas, which is good news, I guess. They're certainly enjoying their streak of no thunderstorms, but some rainfall would be lovely in the southeast of Queensland. They are in desperate need for it. Thursday afternoon, we'll likely see some thunderstorms concentrated in the immediate southeastern corner of Queensland, coupled with a bit of a sea breeze that's going to blow up and head into the onshore parts of the southeast of Queensland, and with the warm temperatures that are expected as well, especially as you get further inland. Some good severe thunderstorms do look possible between a line of Toowoomba up to about Hervey Bay. That includes Kingaroy and then areas inland from the Sunshine Coast. Some good severe thunderstorms are possible through here. Just between this line here, Toowoomba up to about Gympie, extending a little bit further north up to Hervey Bay if they're lucky, but we're certainly expecting some really good cells on Thursday afternoon as well. Instability in the atmosphere, not looking too flash for some of these thunderstorms though, so that's one thing kind of holding me back on saying that this is going to be a pretty powerful day for thunderstorms. The Cape values are In fact, they're below 1,000 across much of the southeast of Queensland on Thursday, and that's not a really good number to see when you're looking out for thunderstorms on the forecast. Still, though, thunderstorms and severe ones can and do fire up in situations like this. Humidity values and temperature values as well looking pretty healthy across the southeast of Queensland. But yeah, certainly Thursday is going to be a night to watch. I'd love to take a closer look at this on the forecast Wednesday morning and see exactly what's expected. But just a heads up, certainly some good storms expected Thursday afternoon as well. Be a little bit different to Wednesday. It looks like thunderstorms might make their way into the Gold Coast metro area at least, definitely around the Coomera areas per this forecast, but it looks like Brisbane might just be sheltered enough to miss out on some of the thunderstorms there. I wouldn't be surprised if something fired up in Brisbane, though. It certainly does look like something might fire up later on in the evening. Thursday is definitely a forecast that I want to take a look at tomorrow and on Wednesday, because there is still a little bit of uncertainty around it, and the convective models do a far better job than the major forecast models, especially because it is a relatively small area that we're talking about in terms of where these thunderstorms are going to be firing up over. Friday, thunderstorms across interior parts of southeastern Queensland, extending across towards the central coast later on in the afternoon and evening between the White Bay area, Rockhampton down to Bundaberg. We're looking at some good thunderstorms possible later on Friday afternoon. These thunderstorms here will start off as pulse thunderstorms and then rapidly upscale into what looks to be a pretty juicy severe thunderstorm outbreak, at least on Friday night, with good thunderstorms expected around Tambo across towards Rolleston and Emerald, and then good thunderstorms as well outside of Rockhampton and Billawheeler, and a couple of good thunderstorms as well extending between a line of Gladstone and Agnes Water, right down through Kingaroy, Gympie, and down towards Toowoomba and Warwick, right down through New South Wales. In fact, you can see these thunderstorms deep into New South Wales at this time. Eastern Australia just as a whole expecting a very nice outbreak of severe thunderstorms potentially on Friday afternoon and evening. Major metro areas including Sydney, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and also some of the town sites along the Sunshine Coast look like they're going to miss out pretty much completely on the severe thunderstorm aspect as well of the forecast. They'll likely get a couple of good thunderstorms later on in the afternoon and evening. Again, they will be isolated and certainly more rain dominant than they will be lightning or wind dominant, but still looks like those thunderstorms stay out of the Brisbane and the Gold Coast area, unfortunately for thunderstorm lovers down there. Saturday also looks like a really good day for thunderstorms. I mean, we're taking this day by day right now. If we keep doing this, the forecast's going to go forever, so you give a little bit less detail, especially considering there is going to be a little bit more uncertainty looking forward now. Saturday, there doesn't look like there's going to be too much in the way of thunderstorms across a wide expanse of Queensland, but certainly the southeast of Queensland, another outbreak of potentially severe thunderstorms expected adjacent to the Sunshine Coast, so between Kingaroy, Maroochydore, and up to about Harvey Bay and Bundaberg. Some good thunderstorms in this little pocket here, and thunderstorms tending to rainfall at times across the southeastern corners of Queensland, including the Scenic Rim, the Gold Coast, and parts of Brisbane as well. Thunderstorms also extending up the central coast as well, right up towards Cairns. In fact, the thunderstorms are making themselves apparent around the Charters Towers area by the looks of things on Saturday afternoon. Sunday, more thunderstorms as well expected. However, it's kind of the first sign that these thunderstorms are going to steadily weaken off. That's not after heavy rainfall, though, across the southeast of Queensland. We're looking at some potentially heavy fall Saturday night and then into early Sunday morning as a bit of a rainfall event kind of materialises across the southeast of Queensland, but we will talk about that in the New South Wales forecast. Certainly looks like it's going to be showers tending to storms at times across Sunday afternoon across the southeast of Queensland, potentially some moderate falls around the Gold Coast area, and certainly some moderate falls expected into the northeast of New South Wales. Beyond that, Monday looks like it is going to be a bit of a cooler, calmer, drier day across the southeast of Queensland, in fact Queensland as a whole. Tuesday the thunderstorms return, but we're going to look at this in a future forecast update because we are now talking more than a week in the future, which for thunderstorms is a notoriously unreliable and irresponsible thing to do, to be honest. Wednesday, more thunderstorms. Thursday as well, the chance of thunderstorms. Then it looks like things might dry off a little bit as we get much later on into the forecast period. But things are interesting across the southeast of Queensland. Multiple days of severe thunderstorms expected right out to this weekend, and then the potential for more days of severe thunderstorms extending right out to the 14th of January as well, and potentially a little bit further beyond that too. And that is really going to do wonders to the rainfall accumulations. Just taking a look at southeastern Queensland, and just for the next 10 days, rainfall accumulations looking really healthy across the southeast of Queensland at this time. You can see 10-day rainfall accumulations now well in excess of 200 millimetres across some of these locations. I mean, rather up to about 200 millimetres outside of Toowoomba. Brisbane expecting about 100 millimetres of rainfall. Same deal with the Gold Coast as well, with isolated higher pockets between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Scenic Rim as well expecting about 130 millimetres of rainfall. Now, of course, depending on what thunderstorms come through, this could certainly be a very low end estimate for rainfall here. Depending on what thunderstorms move through, we could be seeing vastly more rainfall, or if you completely miss out, vastly less rainfall as well across the southeast of Queensland. So we're going to talk about rainfall accumulations on a day-by-day basis. But yes, certainly starting tomorrow night, some good thunderstorms expected across the southeast of Queensland. Something to get quite excited for, I can imagine. Let's talk about New South Wales. We've spent long enough on Queensland. You can see those rainfall accumulations across New South Wales as well, looking really healthy, especially between the Central Coast regions, between Sydney right up to Lismore and Coffs Harbour. Some great rainfall accumulations are now apparent on the forecast here, with up to 250 millimetres outside of the Barrington Tops, outside of Newcastle. Some really good rainfall, like I said, is now on the forecast. Let's break it down for you day by day. Good thunderstorms expected to develop across interior parts of New South Wales this afternoon and evening. Orange looks like they could get a couple of stronger but still non-severe thunderstorms as well down towards Canberra. Some strong non-severe thunderstorms also possible as a weak low pressure system sweeps across the state. It's currently over Victoria at this time, and it's going to promote thunderstorm growth across interior parts of New South Wales. The convective forecast model is not expecting anything crazy by the looks of things. A couple of good thunderstorms possible here and there, tending towards heavier rainfall at times later on into the evening around the Wollongong and Ulladulla area, with some of the heavier showers also extending into the southern suburbs of Sydney. And then later on Tuesday night, certainly looks like a big outbreak of thunderstorms possible across interior parts of New South Wales, extending up between Wagga Wagga through West Wyalong and then up to about Cobar. Some good rainfall as well possible across interior parts of outside of Sydney, Lithgow, Mudgee, Orange, Bathurst and Dubbo. Also expecting some moderate rainfall at times tomorrow, late morning into early afternoon. Sydney as well could get a couple of heavier showers as well. Between the other forecast models as well, you can just see plenty of rainfall expected to develop as this low pressure system sweeps across, turning into a bit of a southerly flow by the looks of things later on into the night, which will cool things down across New South Wales. But this weak low pressure system will bring plenty of rainfall and moisture ashore throughout Tuesday, tending towards heavy rainfall as well late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning across the Central Coast between Sydney up to about Coffs Harbour, including Kempsey, Taree and Newcastle. As such, some falls are expected to be quite heavy, especially around the Barrington Tops late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. Newcastle could see up to about 30 millimetres of rainfall and potentially much more than that depending on what showers come ashore there. Taree and Kempsey, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up 50 millimetres, and then between Kempsey and Coffs Harbour, some places going to pick up 80 millimetres. I can already feel it there. Some good falls are certainly possible from this low pressure system that's going to spin up on a Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. The rainfall will continue throughout Wednesday as well. Showers and storms expected along the central towards the far northern coast of New South Wales throughout Wednesday night and also in towards Thursday night as well. An outbreak of thunderstorms expected Friday afternoon and evening, with potentially severe ones around Narrabri, Moree, Lightning Ridge and we'll get some good thunderstorms as well along the northeastern coast of New South Wales, but they'll tend towards more showers at times, with possible moderate falls extending between Grafton and Taree, including Kempsey and Coffs Harbour. There's definitely the chance of some moderate to heavier falls a little bit further inland. Be a bit of a wild card to see as if Glen Innes gets its much needed rainfall. It doesn't look overly likely at this time, but still 25 millimetres there is completely possible. Tamworth and Armidale as well, about 25 or 30 millimetres is also possible there. Pushing the forecast a little bit forward, and I know I'm absolutely racing through this, so if I've left your head spinning, then please do let me know in the comment section down below and I'll help you out with the forecast for your location. Saturday, some good thunderstorms possible as well across interior parts of New South Wales. They don't look like they're going to be too severe until you get up in towards the northeastern parts of the state, and then beyond Saturday the forecast does become very uncertain. We do have a little bit of a rainfall event that could spin itself up into the South Pacific between sort of Lord Howe Island and Tasmania sometime next Wednesday or Thursday. This low pressure system here will spark from thunderstorms or the remnants of thunderstorms across the interior parts of New South Wales and Queensland, so depending on how severe they are on Tuesday will kind of dictate on how strong this low pressure system is or how much energy this low pressure system will have in terms of its head start to life. So again, it looks like a couple of good thunderstorms possible on Tuesday night, which will tend to rainfall at times on Wednesday morning and into Wednesday night. So we'll have a look at this again in a future forecast update, but this kind of east coast low spinning up, or at least an east coast low solution spinning up between the 18th and the 21st of January. I'm not completely buying into it at this time. The other forecast model is also not 100% certain on what's expected to happen here, but it is certainly something that I'd like to look at in a future forecast update, that's for sure. Look, a lot of congruency between the forecast models, which means the weather forecast is very easy until about Tuesday or Wednesday the 14th or 15th of January, and then beyond that the forecast just becomes a bit of a murky mess because there is a lot of inconsistencies between other forecast models, and just the fact that it is a long-range forecast, there's obviously going to be unreliabilities and errors with it. Now let's talk about interior parts of Australia. I'm very conscious with how long this video has run for, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and the speech is probably going to ramp it up to the detriment of a lot of angry people in the comments. Interior parts of Australia are expected to get quite warm from about Monday onwards. You can see temperatures expected to exceed the 45-degree threshold from Sunday the 12th of January across interior parts of Queensland and parts of South Australia, 46, 47, in fact up to about 48 across some of the locations there. Monday is going to be just as hot, in fact probably a little bit hotter around Birdsville and Badori, up towards 48 or even 49 49 degrees across interior parts here. And like I said, the forecast very consistent until about Monday or Tuesday. So this heat does look like it is going to be set in stone, but certainly some really hot days expected. That low pressure system is going to be brutal for northern parts of New South Wales. Temperatures up to 47 or even 48 around the White Cliffs and Watnaring area, and parts of Queensland as well, expecting tops between 45 up to about 48 degrees as well. Those temperatures also going to be really warm later this weekend for parts of Victoria and New South Wales. 39 expected on Monday for Mildura, and then 40 up to about 44, like I said, expected for between Cobar and Watnaring. Those temperatures really, really warm indeed, thankfully cooling off a little bit on Wednesday and pushing into the more northern parts of Queensland, so the temperatures there will then begin to ease off. And that's about all the time that I can afford to give to the temperature forecast. It's stock standard across Western Australia and the Northern Territory, so I'm not going to waste a minute over there. And same deal down to the southwestern corner of Western Australia. We'll get a little bit warmer across Perth today, up to a top of about 38 expected. In fact, I reckon it could push a little bit warmer than that, especially into the eastern suburbs, just with how that easterly has ramped up. But we'll wait and see. It'll certainly feel a lot cooler than that with how strong the winds are expected to be across the Perth metro area. Let's talk about tropical lows and tropical cyclones. We still have tropical low 08U battling for life. In fact, it looks like it's just finally being blown apart by high levels of wind shear as the working week starts across Western Australia. And then a northern waters of Western Australia, sort of between Christmas Island and Bali at this time, we're looking at another tropical low that's expected to spin itself up throughout the course of this week. You can see by Wednesday we've got a fully blown tropical low offshore from Christmas Island, and then pushing the forecast through Thursday and out towards Friday, we are expecting the system to develop into a very weak tropical cyclone sometime on Friday, most likely around Friday afternoon and evening before it reaches peak intensity Friday evening, and then starts to weaken off throughout Saturday and into Sunday, and then moving well offshore from Western Australia and getting torn to pieces by wind shear by Tuesday and Wednesday. No threat to Western Australia. This system is, in fact, it's not really expected to get to tropical cyclone status anywhere near West Australian coastline either, not even close to Christmas Island. The system at its closest approach as a tropical cyclone, it'll still be about 1,000 kilometres offshore. It will work in driving the temperatures up for the western coast of Western Australia sometime later this weekend and into early next week, but I wouldn't expect it to get stupid hot because it isn't going to be stupidly strong in this system. It has potential to get to Category 1, potentially Category 2 status as well, but I don't really call for it to get any stronger than Category 2 status. Peak sustained winds that shouldn't exceed 100 kilometers an hour in this system at any point during its life. Like I said, though, it's still not a really hot shot of getting up towards Category 1 status. I'm probably going to give it about a 30% chance right now, maybe a 50% chance if it does actually develop into a tropical low by Wednesday, but at this time it looks like it does have a little bit more of an uncertain forecast than we were looking at yesterday. Something we'll revisit in tomorrow morning's forecast update, but again, we've pretty much ran out of time between Queensland and New South Wales today. An awful lot going on over there, and we haven't been able to cover the tropical cyclones, but no fret that this is no threat to Western Australia. Absolutely nothing to be concerned about if you are looking at a tropical cyclone landfall on Western Australia. It's not going to happen, and there's no major forecast model suggesting it at any point during the next 20 days or so. The next 3 weeks, there's nothing in the way of tropical cyclone impacts, at least for the Australian coastline, at least per what the forecast models are saying. That is all from me today, though. Thank you so much for watching the video. I know it's been a really long one this morning to start off the working week and end the holiday period for Australia as a whole. It's a sad day in the Australian calendar for a lot of people to go back to work January 6th, especially after what has been such a great holidays for many people. But let me know how your holidays have been. Let me know how you're feeling in the comment section down below as well. And now, the next holiday, we're gearing up for Australia Day, just 20 days away now. Very excited for it. There'll be plenty of coverage on the weather on the CyclonesOZ channel. That is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.